needed help, that this shock guy would be there for him. So all I need to do is find out his real name. Hey, this woman friend of his.
Rosie Parker?
Said Judith.
Yeah. Do you have the address?
Yes. We dropped Walter's mother off there numerous times over the years.
She gave Rhett the address, and he input it into his phone. He sat and gave Judith a quick hug.
Okay. Let me get a cleaning and landscape crew over to get this place back right. Please, Judith. I offered before, but you keep saying no.
Let me think about it, Rhett. I'm just so tired.
Okay. But no more pills?
She nodded, and he looked at Nash.
Let's roll. Maybe we can find this Parker person at home.
Rhett hurried out the door. As Nash was leaving, Judith gripped his hand. He looked down at her.
I should have believed my husband. When I saw my daughter, what she was saying.
I can understand, ma'am. It must have been overwhelming.
But it shouldn't have been hard,
she replied, as tears started trickling down her cheeks.
I'd been married to him for 20 years. I knew Walter, the sort of person he was. He would never do that.
She looked up at him.
I wish I could tell him so.
He may know, ma'am.
How?
She said fiercely.
How?
You say you knew him?
Yes.
Well, it sounds to me like he also knew you. She held his gaze for a few seconds before saying,
Thank you for helping me when I was sick.
No problem, ma'am. All you've been through, well, it's understandable. He looked in the direction of the door, then knelt down in front of her and gripped both her hands. I don't know what happened to your daughter, but I do know that she would not want you to do anything to hurt yourself. So please just be okay, all right? I know things seem really dark right now, but sometimes the light is just a few feet away. She squeezed his hands and nodded.
What's your name?
Despite everything, Nash almost said, Walter. Dylan. Dylan Hope.
Thank you, Dylan.
Rhett called out to him from the main floor.
Let's go, Hope!
Nash rose, gave Judith one more meaningful glance, and then hustled out. As the Porsche drove away, Judith stood at the window, watching. Chapter 80. Nash was behind and to the left of Rhett as he knocked on the door of Nash's childhood home. He heard footsteps coming and tensed. He had formulated a plan, an absurdly tricky one timing-wise, and he just hoped to hell it worked, or else it was all over. The door opened and there she was. She looked at Rhett first, and then when her gaze caught on Nash, he immediately shook his head and mouthed the words, "You've never seen me." She froze, but only for a moment.
Yes?
She said, looking back at Rhett. And then Parker flinched, and Nash knew it was because she had just recognized a man whom Nash now knew the woman loathed.
Are you Rosie Parker?
Yes. What is this about?
Walter Nash worked for me, and we were trying to see if we could find him.
Well, if the police can't, I'm not sure how you can.
Might we come in?
Her eyes drifted to Nash, who once more shook his head.
No, I'm getting ready to go out. I don't have time.
Okay,
said Rhett, as he took the letter out.
Walt's father wrote him this letter before he died. He said that if Walt ever needed help, he should get in touch with a guy named Shock, who was apparently his father's friend. He's a big black guy. Do you know him?
Parker again looked at Nash, and he shook his head. To her quick-witted credit, Parker also subtly moved to her right to block the view of the framed photo on the wall that Nash had seen on his last visit here, of Ty Nash and Shock.
I don't know anyone named Shock.
But that was just a nickname.
I still don't know him.
But I understood that he was at the funeral service. This big black guy who said some nasty things about Walt? That had to be this Shock guy. Weren't you at the funeral?
Parker didn't chance looking at Nash again.
Of course, yes. That's right. A tall black man. He did say some terrible things about Walter at the service. I guess I'd just blocked it out of my mind. It was awful.
But you don't know who he is?
Asked Rhett.
No. I mean, he's never been around here before. Ty obviously knew him, but I only knew Ty for 2 years before he died. I didn't get a chance to meet most of his old friends.
Did his father ever mention any of his son's friends?
They were estranged. Ty never spoke about him.
Rhett looked crestfallen and slipped the letter back into his pocket.
Yeah. Walt did mention that to me. Okay. Well, I guess that's it.
He handed her a business card.
But if anything should occur to you, please call me. I will make it worth your while.
She nodded curtly and shut the door. Once they were back in the car, Rhett turned to Nash.
Did it seem like she was acting a little odd?
Well, I think I would have acted a little odd if someone had shown up on my doorstep and started asking those sorts of questions.
Yeah, I guess you're right. But that's okay. My private detectives will be able to track this shock guy down.
And then what?
And then we pay him a visit.
You want to find Nash so the cops can arrest him?
If he did what he's accused of, he should be in prison.
How often do you go over and check on his wife? Now Rhett gave Nash a dark stare.
You just pay attention to your job, Dylan. And I'll worry about everything else. Understood?
Understood, Mr. Temple. Rhett glared at him for a moment before gunning the engine, and the Porsche's turbos accelerated the car like a badass with a purpose. Chapter 81. Rhett drove them to the estate in the hills, and not back to the penthouse. Nash walked to his room 2 doors down from Rhett's bedroom and across the hall from Mindy's. He had passed her in the corridor, where she gave him a half-hearted smile. He opened the closet and saw 3 suits in different colors hanging there, along with shirts. There were shoes underneath that fit his feet perfectly. Rhett had taken care of all of this, and had tailored clothing for him both here and at the penthouse. The drawers were filled with underwear and socks, other accessories, and more casual clothing. Nash had no idea how much it had all cost, but with Rhett, what did it really matter? He was in the rarefied position of never being able to spend even the interest on, much less the principal of, his wealth. Nash took a few minutes to send off a long communication to Shock, bringing him up to date on how they knew about him, and also that Nash was now Rhett's bodyguard. Just lay low until you hear from me, and I'm sorry to have brought this on you. Shock's almost immediate response was telling. Don't worry about us. How are you doing? You ever need us, we are here for you. I'm fine. Thanks for everything, Shock. I would not be here without your help. Nash got up the following morning, put on his workout clothes, and headed to the gym complex. He did weights, cardio, stretching, and yoga. Then, using an imaginary knife, he practiced disabling and/or killing a boxing dummy that was a twin of the one at Shock's facility. After 2 hours, the sweat was pouring off his shirtless torso. He sat down on a bench, toweled off, and looked up when she said,
Impressive.
Mindy was standing in the gym doorway, dressed in a silver leotard and black leggings. She was barefoot. Her hair was tied back, and she was holding a rolled-up yoga mat.
I think you killed that poor dummy like 100 times.
He finished toweling off and stood. Yeah, well, just part of the business.
Turn around.
Excuse me?
Your body art. Just want to see if it's on both sides.
He turned around, and she said,
Wow, the lion's muscles ripple when yours do. And the dice are cool.
He turned back and eyed the yoga mat. You finished or just starting?
I did my yoga in the studio next to this room. Barton built out this wing for me.
I'm lucky to have access to it. He paused. Mr. Temple said it was okay, but if... She waved this off and said,
This house belongs to Rhett. I'm just here because he lets me.
Mindy ran her gaze over him again.
Rhett told me about how you saved him. What were you doing there at that time of night? Not many people come up this far into the hills.
This was actually an excellent probing question. He wondered if Rhett had tasked her with asking it, and it did not appear that she had seen him in his truck when he had previously observed her and Amanda driving out of the gates in the Mercedes. I was just passing through the area, taking in the views. But then I noticed this van clearly tailing a Porsche. I've been involved in those scenarios before, and my professional antennae started buzzing.
Lucky for Rhett. But his dick is going to get him killed one day. Or night.
Nash did not want to take the bait on that comment. How's the baby?
Mandy's doing fine.
She eyed his empty ring finger.
You have children?
Nash almost answered, I did. Instead, he said, no. Never married either.
Until I met Barton, I didn't see myself walking down the aisle.
Where did you two meet, if you don't mind me asking?
He financed an independent film, and I was working on the set as part of the crew. We hit it off, and I went from working paycheck to paycheck as a hair and makeup stylist to the wife of a billionaire.
Must have been quite a transition.
Everyone thinks I married him for his money.
She paused, and her look seemed to challenge him to make a comment.
And I did. I mean, who wouldn't? He was nice to me for the most part, but he just wanted young arm candy to show off, and I was it. And now I get to live here.
She eyed him haughtily.
I guess you think that makes me a shitty person?
I think everybody has to do what they have to do, Mrs. Temple. She smiled.
I'm beginning to like you, Dylan. And I have a tattoo.
Oh, really? Where?
I'd have to strip to show you.
She said this in a way that told Nash she would be happy to do so. Well, I better go hit the shower, he said quickly. Mr. Temple might need me later.
Why do you call him Mr. Temple?
He's my boss.
Well, maybe I should start calling him that too, then.
She turned and walked slowly off. That night, someone knocked on Nash's door. It was Rhett, looking triumphant.
My detectives got back to me. The guy Shock mentioned in the letter I found, his real name is Isaiah York. He and Ty Nash grew up together in Mississippi. They also fought in Nam together, like Judith said. York has a condo in town and a business address in another state. They checked his condo. Turns out he hasn't been there for a very long time. So, we're going to hit his business. He might be there, or at least we might find a clue as to Nash's whereabouts. We're wheels up at 8, so be ready to go at 6:30.
After he left, Nash emailed Shock and told him to go deep underground. Then he got into bed, but barely slept, thinking about how quickly all of this might go irreversibly sideways. But the other thing he could not stop thinking about was Judith. She might have cheated on him, but she was still his wife, and he still cared for her. Just hold on, Judith. Please, just hold on. Chapter 82. Rhett's brand new Dassault Falcon 10X jet lifted off right at the stroke of 8 in the morning. On board were Rhett, Lynn Ryder, and Nash, with one flight attendant and a pair of pilots. Nash was sitting at a table with Rhett, while Ryder sat in a forward seat staring out at the gloomy morning as the aircraft cut smoothly through the low cloud ceiling. They were all served breakfast and coffee at an accelerated pace because the flight was only about 90 minutes. Nash recalled that with necessary stops in between and the ubiquitous traffic snarls, it had taken him and Shock nearly 15 hours to cover the roughly 700-mile drive to the training facility. As soon as they dropped below the clouds once more on their descent, the landing gear came down. A few minutes later, they were taxiing to a stop at a private jet park where a sleek black Cadillac Escalade was waiting. Rhett took the wheel, while Nash rode shotgun and Ryder occupied a rear seat.
Ms. Ryder has arranged for some manpower to meet us there,
said Rhett. You expect trouble? Asked Nash.
We expect anything,
Interjected Ryder tersely. It took another 45 minutes to get to their destination. The road in was very familiar to Nash, but he looked around with what he hoped was a sense of seeing it all for the first time. Isolated. No prying eyes, he noted. Rhett nodded.
I think that's our people right up there.
He indicated the SUV parked by the side of the road about 100 yards from the automatic gate into Shock's training center. Rhett stopped next to them and they got out. 3 men emerged from the SUV. They looked hardened and capable. They were also all Asian, Nash noted. Ryder was clearly in command, giving them instructions in what Nash recognized as Japanese. They climbed back into their vehicles and drove to the gate, where one of the men in the other SUV hit the call box button. There was no answer, as Nash knew would be the case.
Nobody home,
Observed Rhett. He eyed Ryder, who was already on her phone. Another man from the other SUV got out and nimbly scaled the wall. 3 minutes later, the gate slid open and the vehicles pulled in. They all got out and looked around at a space that Nash had been intimately familiar with for well over a year. He took great care not to show recognition of any feature, and just pointed out elements that were visible to the naked eye. But he also knew that Shock had security cameras hidden everywhere.
Okay, let's get inside and start the search,
Said Rhett. This facility has to be alarmed, noted Nash. He had figured it would be a beneficial point to raise to divert any suspicion away from him, although he hoped no one had any.
Good idea,
Said Rhett. He looked at Ryder.
Can we get inside the building without calling all the cops down on us?
Ryder pointed to one of her men and again spoke in Japanese. The man went to the main door of the building, which Nash knew housed the living quarters. From a gear pack, the man drew out a small electronic device and ran it along the perimeter of the door jamb until it started to beep. He next took a spray can from the gear pack, inserted a very thin flex straw in the nozzle, and shot this spot with the contents of the can. The substance came out as stark white and seemed to harden immediately. He waited for 10 seconds, then took a long, thin strip of metal from his pack and inserted it between the door and the door jamb at that same spot, carefully sliding it back and forth. He examined this area with a lighted flex scope with a small viewing screen attached. Apparently satisfied, he pulled out a pick gun from his gear pack, inserted it into the lock, and popped it. He opened the door, and no alarm sounded. As they passed through, Nash looked at the collapsible dome-shaped sensor affixed to the top side of the door jamb. It was still in the unreleased, pushed-down position, despite the door having been opened. It looked like it had been glued into place. And the thin metal piece, Nash figured, had been inserted to clear away any of the glue-like substance so that it wouldn't impede the door opening.
Search everywhere,
Ordered Ryder. As they began to do so, Nash suddenly thought of something. The cabinet in the room that held the tattoo binders. If Shock had left them. If they saw the... Shit. He walked there as quickly as he could, opened the cabinet, and saw that the binders were still there. He started going through them, while 2 of the other men came in and started to search other parts of the office. When Rhett came in about a half hour later, Nash was closing up the cabinet.
Anything?
Asked Rhett. Just business documents and promotional newsletters I guess they send out. At that moment, Ryder hurried in and held out an iPad.
We found these prints in one of the bunk rooms. They match Nash's.
So he was definitely here then,
Said Rhett.
But he's not here now.
Pointed out Ryder.
We have to track down this Isaiah York. He has to have another place somewhere.
And no mention of that in those binders you looked at in the cabinet?
Asked Rhett.
Another property? Another address? On some of the promo materials you mentioned?
No, and I went through every page.
Shit. Okay, let's regroup.
Nash side-glanced at Ryder when the woman ventured over to the cabinet door and opened it. His hand eased to his gun. Okay, this might be it. And that would have been it, if the man who had stayed outside on watch had not phoned Ryder, even as loud noises from outside reached them in here. She answered, listened for a few moments, and said to the others,
Sirens and alarm lights are going off outside. There must have been a trip sensor somewhere. We need to leave. Now.
Nash thought that a trip sensor would have no doubt sounded a long time ago, but he was not arguing with Ryder's command to immediately vacate the premises. They all rushed to their vehicles and drove off. As the sirens grew louder, they reached a side road that carried them on a macadam path through a forest of mostly evergreen trees,
GPS says this winds back to the road we originally came in on.
said Rhett, who was in the lead of the two-vehicle caravan.
We should be okay.
And when the sounds of the sirens faded, they all let out a collective breath of relief. However, Nash's was longer and more sincere than the others. 90 minutes later, the three of them, plus the team of Asians, were cruising at 41,000 feet. It didn't make Nash feel any better when Ryder was on the phone the whole time. And whenever she glanced at him, it was not with a friendly expression. But then again, he had concluded, she never looked friendly to anyone. He kept his fingers only a few inches from his gun the entire trip, while he noted that Rhett had his eyes closed, but did not appear to be sleeping. Nash wondered what would happen if he had to end up shooting everyone except the pilots and flight attendant. Maybe he could then hijack the plane to Cuba. I might just take being in witness protection and stocking shelves at a dollar store in Idaho over this. Chapter 83. Later that night, Nash perched on his bed at the Temple estate and stared down at the email he'd received from Shock on his phone.
We was watching all of you on the cameras. When the lady went for the cabinet, I triggered the sirens. I got up in the trees around the place. And sorry about the damn tattoo binders. When you alerted us that they were heading our way, we had to really hustle to clean up the space. I thought Byron had gotten them, and he thought I had taken care of it.
He messaged Shock back. It worked great, and thanks. Nash heard a noise out in the hall. He went to his door and opened it just a crack. Lynn Ryder was gliding down the corridor. She stopped and knocked on Rhett's door. He opened it, and she slipped inside. Nash grabbed the small bag holding his surveillance equipment, quietly left his room, and crept into the empty bedroom next to Rhett's. He attached a listening device to the adjoining wall, donned a pair of earphones, and instantly heard their voices.
She is not pleased,
said Ryder.
But we're making progress,
retorted Rhett.
The progress is not fast enough.
Then what exactly would you suggest?
Said Rhett heatedly.
It is not my place to suggest. It is your place to act. Nash has already caused damage. He got into restricted databases. The FBI has executed search warrants. People have been detained and held for questioning. International law enforcement agencies are engaged and coordinating. This is serious.
Well, it was her goddamn fault that Nash got away in the first place.
Do you wish for me to report to her that you said so?
Nash thought he could hear the clink of ice in a glass. He imagined Rhett taking a sip of whatever he was having in order to give him more time to think of an adequate response. Nash had seen him do that in business meetings and in encounters with his father. Rhett said,
I think that the last thing we need to do right now is fight amongst ourselves. We're only going to get through this by working together. And I've got a lot on my plate, and things keep being added to it. Hell, now even his wife thinks Nash is innocent.
Excuse me?
said Ryder. Nash felt his heart skip a beat. Rhett must have sensed that he had said something potentially dangerous because he immediately began to backtrack.
It's nothing. Just saying stupid things.
Has she said these stupid things to the police?
Asked Ryder.
What? No. No, she wouldn't. I'm sure of it.
There is only one way to be sure,
said Ryder. Now Rhett was pleading.
She's out of her head, okay? She takes pills. No one will believe her, least of all the police.
So she takes pills. That is good to know. And useful.
No, wait. Please. Just leave her out of this. She is not a danger to us, I promise.
Your promises mean nothing to me, Mr. Temple.
Nash heard Ryder leave. Then Rhett said,
Shit. I'm sorry, Judith.
Nash poked his head out the doorway and saw Ryder walking down the hall. She was already on her phone. The Asian men had not come to the estate with them, but they had to be staying nearby, he knew, and he felt certain that she was contacting them right now. Nash closed the door, grabbed the listening device, slipped it and the earphones into his pocket, and stepped out into the hall.
Who are you?
Angie was staring at him from across the hall in her bedroom doorway. I work for Rhett. Yes. She nodded.
You want tea?
Nash looked up and down the hall. The last thing he wanted was to waste time with tea, but if he refused and Angie got upset and made a ruckus, he had met her once before when he and Judith had been invited to dinner. Barton had mentioned that little things could set Angie off, and it would take a great deal of time and effort to calm her down. Sure, that sounds nice. She smiled and opened her door more. While Angie fiddled with teacups, he sent a message to Agent Morris and explained what had just happened. Judith is in great danger. You have to get her out of there, now. When he didn't get a response, Nash grew agitated. Angie brought over his tea and cookie. He thanked her and drank it, and ate the cookie as fast as he could, even though it was stale and bitter.
Tars,
She said, pointing at the ceiling littered with glittery stars.
beautiful.
Yeah, they are, he said, his heartbeat hammering in his ears. Then he remembered something that Rhett had done when Barton couldn't get Angie to go to sleep when he and Judith had gone there for dinner. He said, Night, 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 Angie. Time to go night, night, night. She smiled, nodded, got into her bed, and closed her eyes.
Night, 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 night,
She said. Nash was out the door a second later. His Porsche was parked in the motor court. He looked back up at the dark facade of the house. This was a big risk, but he had no other options. He manually opened the gate, put the car in neutral, pushed it out past the gates, and closed them. Then he hopped in when he hit a downward slope, started the engine, and drove as fast as he could to his old home. He had lost Maggie. He could not lose Judith. Chapter 84. 40 minutes passed, and it seemed like 40 years, until Nash reached his old neighborhood. He had no way to get through the security gate, so he parked down the street, nimbly hopped the fence, and made his way in the darkness to his old home. He got in through the same back door into the laundry room that Maggie's kidnappers had forced. The mingled smells of dirty clothes, detergent, and bleach hit him. The alarm was not set, though he remembered the passcode if it had been. He took the steps two at a time and found Judith lying in bed. But this new version of Judith did not sleep nearly as soundly as the old version. She called out from the darkness.
Who's there?
He could see her shadowy image as she sat up in bed. It was only now that he realized he needed to tell her something. Mrs. Nash, I was here earlier with Rhett Temple. He drew closer.
What do you want?
She said, drawing up the sheet to cover her as she stared at him. You were right. Your husband was framed. The sheet came down a bit.
Who are you?
I work with the FBI.
But I thought you were working with Rhett.
She paused.
Wait, you think...
Rhett let it slip to some dangerous people that you believe that your husband is innocent. These people do not want you raising that concern with the police.
So they plan on killing me?
She said this so lucidly that Nash nearly forgot that his wife had handled with dignity and aplomb many crises in her life, including the tragic and untimely deaths of her parents in an accident. But the twin tragedies of Maggie and him had simply been too much for her. Yes, I'm here to get you to safety.
Do I have time to dress and collect a few things?
Please hurry. She took all of 3 minutes and joined him back in the bedroom. He held her hand to steady her as they swiftly moved down the stairs. They had just reached the lower level and were about to exit the home through the door Nash had come in when he heard the noise. He drew his gun and told Judith to get behind him. Nash calmly lined up his muzzle directly at the back door. As it was pushed open, Nash took aim. The man coming through had on a black ski mask and was holding a knife, so this was clearly not the FBI. They would have come in the front door with lots of guns, badges, and noise. The moment of truth was here. Obstacles, Nash. Not human beings. Obstacles. Like Dad said. Nash shot the intruder in the head, and he tumbled down dead even as Judith screamed. The door was then kicked fully open, and 2 more men burst in. This was the team of Asians who had accompanied them to Shock's place. They had no doubt recognized Nash, which meant he had to kill them, or else it was all over. But that was far easier said than done. Before he could fire again, his gun was smashed out of his hand by a spin kick executed to perfection by the first man. This was followed up by a hard leg strike against Nash's shoulder by the same man. He tumbled backward and slammed into Judith. She went down, slid across the floor, hit her head on the baseboard, and fell unconscious. Nash had no time to see how she was, because the second man was now coming at him with twin knives, whirling them at incredible velocity. Nash grabbed a plastic laundry hamper off the washing machine and used it to block the knife strike. He finally managed to get the blades stuck in the side webbing of the basket, and then Nash twisted them out of the man's grip. But the man came at Nash again, kicking and punching, and Nash was barely able to deflect the blows. Nash knew he was not going to be able to hold out for long, especially since the other man was attempting to circle behind him in the confined space. Their martial arts skills were greater than his. He had to concede. Sometimes it was as simple as that. Then Shock's entreaty came back to him. Do whatever you have to do, cheat or anything else, to walk out alive. Well, he had one advantage. He knew this particular battlefield better than his opponents. Nash grabbed the iron off the shelf, and when the man put up his hands to block the object he believed Nash was about to hurl at him, Nash tossed it through the window instead. As the bewildered man took time to process this, Nash snatched a washcloth off a stack on the dryer, scooped something from the shattered window with one hand, and lifted a bottle of bleach with the other, his fingers dexterously twisting the top off. He turned and fed a face full of bleach into the eyes and open mouth of his startled attacker. The man gagged and ripped at his pupils, at the very same time that Nash took the jagged piece of glass from the broken window, which he was holding with the washcloth, and slashed it violently across the man's sinewy neck. It severed both the left and right jugulars, sending blood spewing across the room. The second man screamed in fury as he rushed forward. Nash dumped the rest of the bleach on the floor, and when the man hit the slickened spot, his legs flew up and he landed hard on his back on the floor. Nash dropped to his knees, drew the Beretta from the ankle holster, and shot the man in the face. Twice, just to be sure. Then it was over. Nash stared down at 3 men, all of whom had lost their lives solely due to him. He felt his knees weaken and his gut lurch as he eyed the blood, the bodies, the destruction he had wrought. He lowered the gun and closed his eyes. 4 breaths in. Hold for 4. 4 breaths out. And hold for 4. Repeat. It got Dad through his combat. It will get you through your combat. When he heard the rush of footsteps coming toward the door, Nash's eyes popped open, and he pointed his Beretta at the opening.
FBI!
Called out a voice.
Show yourselves, now!
Agent Morris! Called out Nash. Morris, his gun held in one hand, peered around the doorway and shone his light around.
Who's that?
It's Dylan Hope. I'm the one who messaged you. I've got Mrs. Nash with me. Nash raced over to Judith, who was just now regaining consciousness. When she sat up and saw the dead men and all the blood, she moaned and was sick to her stomach. Nash grabbed another washcloth to help clean off her face and blouse. Morris came farther into the room and shone his light on them. The FBI agent studied Nash, but clearly didn't recognize him.
Dylan Hope?
He said. Yes.
Who are you? What are you doing here?
Nash helped Judith up and said, I've told Mrs. Nash that I'm working with the Bureau on this matter, and that you would get her to a safe place. He looked at the 3 dead men. I think we were both a little late on that score.
The Bureau?
Morris said, still staring at Nash before looking down at the dead bodies. Yes. You and I have met before, actually. Up in New York City with the Deputy AG when I was recruited for this mission. You accepted my terms, and we've been working this ever since. I've just been lying low for a bit and, changing things up. Nash looked at him directly and cocked his head. Morris stared intently back at him. and then his jaw eased down in shock as he put two and two together. Nash thought he could hear the man mutter,
Holy Mother of God.
Nash said, "It would also be really good if we could somehow show that Mrs. Nash was no longer around, so that folks would not look for her." Morris nodded, clearly trying to process all this. He finally said,
Okay. It will be communicated publicly that Mrs. Nash was, killed during the course of a home invasion. We'll sell that to the local cops.
"You came up with that quickly," said an impressed Nash.
When you messaged me, we decided on a plan if we got here in time. I need to call in another team. I'll be back in 2 minutes.
After he left, Judith looked at Nash and said,
I'll be safe. But will you?
"I'll be fine. I'm just glad this all worked out and that we were able—" Here Nash stumbled and couldn't finish. She looked at the men on the floor.
You saved my life.
She gave him a searching look and then glanced away when Morris came back in.
Okay. The team will be here ASAP and we'll get this done.
He said to Nash.
You'd best be on your way. Agent Hope.
Nash looked at his wife, wanting more than anything to tell her who he really was. All he said was, "Good luck, Mrs. Nash." She gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek, and stared deeply into his features. In fact, Nash felt like he was being X-rayed.
Thank you, Agent Hope.
After he left, Morris said awkwardly to her,
He's a good man. Quite capable.
Judith gave him a contemptuous glance and said,
What do you expect from a fucking Eagle Scout?
Chapter 85.
I still can't believe it.
Said Rhett. It was the next day, and he was at his estate in the hills. Nash and Ryder both sat across from him in his father's old office. They had all seen the news reports of the violent incident at Nash's old home.
You sent a team there, and none of them came back. And yet Judith was killed?
Nash said, "If you want my opinion, your guys are in custody and being questioned right now by the feds,"
I disagree,
said Ryder quietly. "Then where are they?" retorted Nash. "Why haven't they reported back?" Ryder did not answer. She simply studied her phone. Nash continued, "This is classic FBI playbook. They feed out to the news what they want and leave out all the rest."
You have experience with the FBI?
Ryder said sharply. "Every person working in the personal security sector for high-net-worth Americans has dealt with the FBI," Nash replied. "You ask me, they had an informant that tipped them off that something was about to go down with the woman. They didn't get there in time to save her, but they got your team as the consolation prize." He glanced from Ryder to Rhett, and then back at the woman. Nash had arrived back at the estate last night, he hoped unseen, but wanting to divert any suspicion, he had decided to go on offense and put Ryder on her heels with what had happened.
That is absurd,
retorted Ryder. "The conditions on the ground say otherwise," countered Nash. "Unless all your guys turned traitor at the same time." Ryder suddenly looked both confused and fearful, and Nash could understand why. Victoria Steers certainly would not want 3 of her men in the custody of the FBI.
But Judith Nash has been eliminated,
Ryder pointed out.
Let's not overlook that.
Seems to me like you sacrificed 2 knights and a bishop to gain a rook.
Interjected Rhett.
Admit it, Lynn, it's a shit show. And it doesn't get us any closer to finding Nash.
Before Ryder could say anything in response, her phone buzzed. She looked at the text. After she read it, she glanced up.
She wishes to see us, Mr. Temple.
Rhett turned a shade paler.
Where and when?
"Who are we talking about?" asked Nash, though he well knew.
We are to go to her, in Hong Kong.
"Who?" Nash demanded again, but Rhett held up his hand.
Why does she want to meet?
He asked Ryder.
She has been made aware of the latest developments and wants to hold a council of war. She requires your presence.
Nash said, "Mr. Temple, I need to come with you,"
No,
said Ryder sharply.
only Mr. Temple is allowed.
Rhett said forcefully,
No. If he doesn't go, I won't either.
She said,
began Ryder.
I don't care, okay?
Blurted out Rhett.
My father was murdered. Maggie and Judith Nash are dead. Nash himself is God knows where, and now your guys are missing. There's a rat somewhere. I feel it. I'm up to my neck in shit right now, lady. And you've done nothing except make things worse. So it's both of us. Or you can fucking go alone.
Ryder stared hard at Rhett, as though she believed her gaze alone could slay him. Then she drew a breath, tapped in a message on her phone, and sent it off. 30 seconds later, the reply dropped into her inbox.
"It is approved.
She said.
Her jet will fly us to LA and then on to Hong Kong."
They all went to pack and get ready. Nash sent a secure message to Morris about all of this and got a reply back.
Please do not get on that damn plane.
Nash's reply was just as quick. Please take care of Judith. And if I don't make it back, tell her I tried my best. After the refueling stop in LA, Steers' sleek jet charged into the sky. Nash stared out the window as he left America beneath him. He reflected for a few moments on what it must have felt like for his father, at the tender age of 18, to be flying halfway around the world to fight in a war where someone you knew would die pretty much every day, and your own odds of survival were never very good. Nash seriously doubted he would be coming back alive from his war. Yet he also doubted that Victoria Steers and Rhett Temple would be among the living if he had any say in it. And he would do all he could to make sure he did. I know I'm tilting at windmills, although my enemies are anything but imaginary. But sometimes an eye for a damn eye may be the best you can do. Yet if the hell he had endured had taught Nash anything, it was that the only things that really mattered to him were his family. It was an easy thought to articulate, but far harder to actually live day in and day out. Now he regretted every second he had been on the road for business and missed anything happening in Maggie's life, because he would never get an opportunity to have a second chance with her, just like with my father. And after seeing Judith descend into the depths of despair after losing her daughter, Nash understood that his cold, focused, and aloof nature might very well have driven his wife into the arms of someone like Rhett Temple. I failed the people I was supposed to take care of, but I may have gotten a second chance to make restitution, at least in a small way, and I will sacrifice everything I have, including my life, to make it right, or as right as I can make it, because nothing will bring Maggie back, and Judith will never be the same, but I will try my best, and I'm Ty Nash's son, so bet against me at your peril. And now, keep listening for a preview from the sequel, Hope Rises. Chapter 1. Walter Nash was jolted awake. The jet he was on en route to Hong Kong, had encountered some rough air. He turned to see his employer, Rhett Temple, sitting next to him. Nash's now alert gaze then moved to Lynn Ryder, who was asleep in a forward seat on the privately owned plane soaring westward toward Asia. Ryder was in her 30s with long white hair that was either colored or natural. He didn't know which. She was also an emissary for Victoria Steers, one of the most ruthless criminals in the world. They were currently aboard Steers's jet and were traveling to see the woman at her behest. He next glanced out the window, and reflected back was his image. That spurred Nash to reflect on his life over the last year and a half. He used to be a mild-mannered, law-abiding business executive, tall and skinny, with no discernible muscle, a full head of hair, and nary a tattoo within a mile of him. Out of necessity, Nash had shaved his head, grown facial hair, and transformed himself into a muscled, tatted, fighting machine, complete with a new identity. Dylan Hope, personal security expert. No one, not even his wife Judith, now recognized him. He had gone from reviewing business plans and acquiring companies and flying on corporate jets with not a whiff of intrigue or danger in his life, to playing a deadly game of cat and mouse and having to fool everyone around him into believing he really was Dylan Hope. Because he knew that Lynn Ryder and Victoria Steers wanted nothing more than to kill Walter Nash. I truly am living in the upside-down world, and I seriously doubt I will ever get back to my world. But I have got to see this through. He turned to Temple, the CEO of Sybaritic Investments, Nash's former employer. The man had been across the aisle when Nash first shut his eyes, and Nash wondered why he had changed seats. It was a small detail, but Nash sensed that seemingly trivial acts clearly mattered right now. As Dylan Hope, Nash had dexterously placed himself in a position to be employed as his old boss's personal bodyguard. The ruse had worked, and Nash's life had changed to an even greater extent, as he was now firmly residing in the enemy's camp. Speaking in the slow, deliberate tone he had adopted as Hope's voice, Nash said, "Is there a problem?" Temple replied quietly,
Look, Dylan, it's delicate. But Victoria Steers is not, well, completely on the up and up.
"Okay," said Nash cautiously. "Meaning what exactly?"
She's, well, dangerous. And I don't want you to slip up and get yourself in trouble when you meet her.
Nash thought it far more likely that Temple didn't want Nash to slip up and get him in trouble with the villainous Steers. Though he well knew the answer, Nash asked, "Exactly how is she not on the up and up and dangerous?"
She's into drug distribution on a global scale. And she has people killed.
Nash stared back in feigned astonishment at his boss. Then, in keeping up the subterfuge that he had no idea who Steers was, he asked, "What the hell, Mr. Temple? Why is a rich guy like you involved with her?"
It's a long story, Dylan. My father, he was working with her to recoup his fortune, and he got me involved. I wish I had an out, but I don't. I really don't. Trust me, I've tried.
"So she wants to meet? Why?" Temple leaned in closer and said in a near whisper,
The FBI has, well, tried to make some inroads at my company. Finding a mole. A spy there, so to speak.
Nash let his jaw go slack. "The FBI? Jesus, Mr. Temple. I didn't sign up for this,"
Then you shouldn't have come.
said a voice. Both men looked up to see Ryder awake and staring at them from her seat. She had obviously overheard at least part of their conversation. She walked down the aisle until she was standing in front of them.
In fact, as I made very clear, I did not want you to come.
Nash glanced at Temple before saying, "As his personal security guard, I insisted on coming because I was concerned with Mr. Temple's safety. But frankly, I might have declined if I had known all the facts." Ryder gave Temple a withering look as she said to Nash,
And now that you have been provided some facts, we will see what happens when we arrive in Hong Kong.
She walked back to her seat. Temple glanced at Nash.
Dylan, I'm sorry you got caught up in all this. I really am.
He returned to his seat, where he closed his eyes and started taking deep, calming breaths. Nash looked out the window, his thoughts as black as the darkness outside. "Well, Nash, this might be the end of you. But if I go down, I'm taking others with me, starting with Victoria Steers." Chapter 2. A man was waiting for them in the airport with Lynn Ryder's name on an iPad. He led them to a large Mercedes passenger van in the parking garage. There were 4 men there in addition to the driver. Nash could see that all of them were armed. After their bags were loaded in, they were driven off, one sturdy guard on either side of both Nash and Temple. They passed through a tunnel under Victoria Harbor and emerged into daylight on the other side. After negotiating a series of surface roads, they reached a high-rise building in the Hom Hong neighborhood, located in the southeast section of Kowloon Peninsula. Nash recognized the area because he had stayed nearby on a previous trip while working for Sybaritic. The Mercedes parked in the building's underground garage. A glass elevator carried them into the sky. Temple looked nervous, Ryder confident, and Nash, despite his anxiety level riding pretty high, did his best to appear calm. The doors opened directly into an entry vestibule where two armed men appeared. They expertly searched Nash and Temple and promptly confiscated Nash's 2 guns and both men's phones. "I want those back," demanded Nash. However, nothing was returned. They were escorted into a large room with floor-to-ceiling windows and sweeping views of the dazzling harbor. Ryder took a seat next to a large chair set in the center of the room, while Nash and Temple were directed to 2 seats across from her. Nash's gaze took in every aspect of the room, especially the armed men. What Nash was observing was not good, since he had no weapons and the exits were guarded by men who did. And he was in a foreign land that was controlled by China. None of that boded well for him. Then, she came into the room. Prior to this, Nash had seen only a photo of Victoria Steers, briefly shown to him during a previous meeting with the FBI. Steers was the product of a Chinese mother and an English father. Tall and wiry, with long black hair and porcelain skin, Steers glided across the floor dressed in sleek dark clothing that covered all of her body except her neck, face, and hands. She carried no weapon and did not look particularly threatening, yet at her appearance every hair stood up on the back of Nash's neck. When he eyed Temple, he noted that his boss was staring at Steers with palpable fear. Steers smiled at Ryder.
Thank you, Lynn, for all your good work.
Of course, Miss Steers.
Then Steers looked at Temple.
Mr. Temple, would you introduce me to your colleague, whom you insisted accompany you on this trip, despite objections?
Temple cleared his throat and said,
This is Dylan Hope, my personal bodyguard.
Your personal bodyguard? Do you have something to fear, Mr. Temple?
"Everyone has something to fear, Ms. Steers." She glanced at Ryder before saying,
I also understand that Mr. Hope has been told of our private business.
Temple's lips curled in displeasure in the face of Ryder's smug features.
He had to be told some things, Miss Steers, but he is a professional, and everything will be kept in the strictest confidence, I can assure you.
Steers did not appear to be listening.
You bring a stranger to my home and reveal some of our business to him. In my estimation, you have performed acts that are truly unforgivable.
I was told you had approved it.
Temple added, with a sharp glance at Ryder. Steers seemed to ignore this as well.
I was also informed that Mr. Hope is discomforted by the business between us.
Look, he can be a real asset to you,
said Temple.
He is top-notch. I've seen that for myself.
I have many top-notch people in my employ already, Mr. Temple. I require no others.
She slowly withdrew her searing gaze from him and swung it around to Nash.
However, Mr. Hope, now that you are here, it will be interesting to see if you can become an asset. I trust you understand all that this entails?
I do. Thank you, Ms. Steers, Nash said, though every muscle in his body was tensed to respond immediately in the face of her threatening phrasing. If I can just reach the man who took my guns. As though she were reading Nash's mind, Steers held out her hand. One of the guards produced a Glock 9mm and placed it in her palm. She gripped it, checked the mag, and racked the slide, loading a bullet. As she looked at them, Temple went rigid in his chair, and Nash felt his butt cheeks involuntarily clench.
A good choice in a personal sidearm, Mr. Hope,
she said.
However, I prefer a Norinco NP42 Mini. But then again, I like to buy local.
The Chinese also make good weapons, he said.
Indeed they do. They made me, after all. I also understand that 3 of my people are now in the hands of the FBI. That is a decided setback that I find unacceptable. Accountability must be served.
At this abrupt segue, Temple glanced anxiously at Ryder and blurted out,
I had nothing to do with that. That was not my call. I argued against it, in fact.
Steers said menacingly,
You disavow all responsibility for this debacle. Is that really what you are telling me?
Temple sputtered.
I didn't mean... I just wanted to point out that...
He glanced at Ryder and saw her smug look deepen even as he squirmed. Before he could say anything else, Steers raised the pistol, causing Temple to put up his hands and flinch backward. Steers then pointed the gun at Ryder's head and fired. The woman fell to the floor. Blood sprayed all over her clothing and white hair. Some of the blowback had dotted Steers's cheek, hand, and sleeve. One of the guards hustled forward and used a wet cloth to thoroughly clean her off. 2 other men rushed in, wrapped Ryder in plastic, and carried her out. The chair in which she had been sitting was also removed, and the marble floor underneath the chair thoroughly mopped. Temple and Nash appeared stunned, while Steers had her eyes closed, her expression placid. When all traces of the woman had been removed, Steers opened her eyes and studied the 2 men.
Death can be awkward,
She said.
and unpleasant.
Yes, it can, said Nash evenly.
And also necessary.
She added. Nash did not reply to this. She looked at Temple.
My people being in the custody of the FBI is not good.
No.
Said Temple quickly. He still looked horrified by what had just happened. Steers once more turned to Nash.
I trust that you understand the implications of what has just transpired, Mr. Hope.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about, said Nash cautiously. You mean Ryder's death?
You disappoint me. I thought it rather obvious.
She held up the pistol.
You and your weapon have just committed a terrible crime in Hong Kong. And though Hong Kong does not have the death penalty, China does, and it exercises no hesitation in employing it. It is done by lethal injection, or else they shoot you.
She handed the gun to one of her men.
That choice will be theirs. But you also have a choice to make.
She glanced at Temple.
And, as an accessory, Mr. Temple, your fate will not be much better. Life in prison. But again, you have a choice as well.
Nash drew a shaky breath. You mean we can choose to work with you? She shook her head.
To work for me.
And if we refuse? Said Nash, already knowing the answer.
Then steps will be taken demonstrating that my colleague's murder occurred in China, and all necessary evidence to implicate both of you in her death will be provided. The rest is assuredly known to you. One of you will be executed, and the other will spend the rest of his life in a Chinese prison.
She added coolly.
I think I would prefer death, actually. The Chinese are often not kind to their own law-abiding citizens, and they are completely ruthless to their criminals.
She glanced at Temple.
And Americans, in particular, are not at all popular in China at present.
To work for you, doing what, exactly, Miss Steers?
Asked Temple in a tremulous voice. Nash thought he knew the answer, but it would turn out that he could not have been further from the truth. She said,
My mother is being held in a prison in another country, and you both are going to help set her free.
Audible hopes you have enjoyed this program. 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 program, 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 program,